Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
All right, Daniel, we don't do a pod for a week, and there's a lot to unpack. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, all right. I've survived January with no booze and decided I'd take up boozing again last night, so feeling a little delicate. How are you?
I too had a lively evening, so I am feeling slightly
Very good.
spacey, I suppose. Yeah,
All right, welcome to Hungover
We'll
Cast.
we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about Forest. I guess we can do that in about 30 seconds because not sure much was notable there, apart from the return of Jadon Sancho, which was nice to see.
I think what I liked about Forest was it wasn't going that well. They were playing okay, and then after an hour, it was like, all right then, here's Sancho, Martial and Rashford.
Yeah.
And the ability, suddenly we have all these attacking options. And the ability to do that, to completely change the type of player that the defence has got used to playing against is, that we haven't had that for a long time. And I've been thinking this for a while. I said to a friend in the week that I wondered if Sancho could maybe play instead of Bruno sometimes, or even play instead of Eriksen sometimes, because what I like about Sancho is, what I don't like about him as a winger is he's not fast enough and he's not strong enough. And
he's not quick. No.
When you're dealing with the flanks, you're generally dealing with ability to burst into space, and whereas in the middle there's less space, so it's more about intelligence and feet. And he has absolutely loads of both, and he's a good finisher.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'd seen him for Dortmund play centrally and thought he was good, and he looks like a number 10 who plays out wide. He likes to knit things together in a way that, and I'm very sorry for the comparison, for you send me pelters, a bit the way that Zinedine Zidane done. He was number 10 who played off the left, and Sancho sort of got that air about him. I did wonder after that game. He did 20 minutes central. Bruno went wide right, which I don't really like. Ten Hag seems to, and talked about it afterwards. But I kind of thought Bruno could go deeper into the Eriksen role in those games where we actually just want to control the ball and attack, and Fred doesn't quite give you that. And Sancho could play at 10. We'll see whether, I mean, there are options, right? And you could do that if you wanted.
Putting Bruno on the right is more acceptable if you've got a decent alternative in his position. And I mean, it's only half an hour of one game, but I guess it was something that I thought might be possible before, and now I've seen it, and I think it's still possible. But putting Bruno on the right is more acceptable if you've got someone who can do something in his position. Whereas one of my biggest complaints about Bruno on the right is you're taking the best player in the team out of his best position, and that isn't particularly helpful. But
I kind of think it's more acceptable for him to be at number 8, which he has sort of played this season to some extent. You do take him away from the action a little bit, and he still is creating. He's still 50 chances created across all competitions. Bruno is, or more than 50. I think he's only a couple behind Kevin De Bruyne now, right? So he still creates more than anybody else in the team, even if Eriksen's got all the assists this season. Anyway, it's an option. I thought that was the notable thing that came out of Forest. And then Palace, man, there's a lot to talk about in this one. I mean, a victory, which was more than we managed to get away at Palace like 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was. But there's a lot going on, and more sort of refereeing controversy. And I'm not one for kind of conspiracy theories, but I don't half feel like there's a bit of payback for Rashford's goal against City going on. It doesn't seem like we get many decisions at the moment.
Yeah, to look at that whole melee, and let's first of all say that much as Casemiro missing 3 games is a pain in the arse, the sight of the red shirts piling in did something very profound to my soul. It was just so great to see that again, where someone gets into trouble and you've got all the team legging it from all corners of the pitch to say, right, then let's have it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to then, if you do what Casemiro did, then you can get sent off. But the angle that they showed on Match of the Day last night was not the angle that the referee saw. And he barely touched him at all. And
hardly at all. Yeah. It looks horrible in slow-mo, doesn't it? But actually, when you see there's two other angles that were going around, and if you watch it real time, it's about a second and a half, maybe less. And then they have a hug afterwards because he's like clearly stopping him getting into the fighting.
And there's also that aspect of once it becomes violent conduct and a straight red, to get sent off in a game and miss another 3 games for that
the punishment is wild for that. I mean, I want. Yeah, I mean, then the problem is in the age of VAR, the chances of overturning it are pretty small because the referee's gone and seen it. The problem is he only saw, because we see what he's seeing on the monitor, and VAR does have like 20-odd angles. He's only seen the monitor and he's only seen it in super slow-mo, and it looks like it's aggressive and he's grabbing his neck. And when you look at it in real time, it's clearly not. You know?
Tickling him under the... It's just tickling him.
It's just kind of holding him back from the fighting. I
did love Casemiro's innocent face also. when the ref comes back to him, he's just got one of those really excellent comic faces. I feel like he could do that kind of Rowan Atkinson thing if he pursued a different vocation. He's just got one of those Les Dorset and Rowan Atkinson extremely expressive, cute faces. But he does seem to like having a little bit of time off every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we noted previously he's been quite aggressive, more aggressive, I think, than in his Real Madrid days in the tackling. I guess he's doing more defensive work these days. And I'm not saying the two things are connected necessarily, but he has got a lot of yellow cards, and and he's upped it a little bit. But I still think it was just so nothing. And then, of course, actually Jordan Ayew threw a hand into Fred's neck. It wasn't even like it was a full on swing. And so if you want consistency, Ayew shouldn't have spent the last 20 minutes on the pitch either.
It was just one of those things where there's a massive melee, but nothing actually happens, and you could easily just start the game again. Yeah. I don't think that if Casemiro would not have been sent off, there would have been a massive inquisition about what went on there.
Well, I don't know. There was 4 days of national wailing about Marcus Rashford's goal, which has led to, if you want, conspiracy-minded, probably 2 penalties being turned down the other night without Weghorst getting his shins almost decapitated and a handball.
The one against Palace also that came just afterwards.
Exactly.
Felt like some kind of karmic payback, but not actually.
And the foul on Eriksen that didn't even get a card.
But the thing is I think that, because I want to be really clear, I don't think there's any kind of conspiracy against United. And what I think sometimes is that the aggravation of giving United a decision is something that, if you're a referee, it would be impossible not to factor into your thinking. Even
they're all human.
When we were good previously, you used to sometimes think that it was a whole season more or less that went without getting a penalty at Old Trafford. And in just the same way that I'm absolutely certain there were refs who thought, I can't be fucked getting aggravation from Fergie, I'll just give that. That must have happened. I mean, because as referees are human and all humans have biases, I'm also certain that there are occasions when decisions weren't given because you don't want to be that ref that gives a soft penalty at Old Trafford, because then you just have your integrity questioned and it's just not worth it.
So Howard Webb, talking to Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, I think, on one of the Sky Sports shows earlier this week, said that you can interpret the laws and say that Rashford's goal was perfectly fine against City, right? He said that. He said, then we probably won't see this one again because the game doesn't like it. And he was probed about who he meant by saying the game. And he was clubs and players, and he was being very studious to not say the media. But obviously, who made the fuss? National broadcasters
Howard Webb was
mostly.
Is an interesting start to a sentence.
Yeah.
But I always hear his name in my head said in Alan Green's accent. I don't know why. Howard. I don't know why that is, but yeah, that's how I always think of him. But
nice.
Yeah, he's come back to save us. And the thing is, if you don't start from a position where you think VAR is going to get everything right, then that perhaps makes it easier. But then if that is the case, then why have we really got it anyway? And
right.
I can't be asked to care about that Casemiro red card. I didn't think it was a red card, but as soon as I saw it, I knew who was going to send him off. But I think that it is a shame if you can't caress someone's chin without getting not allowed to play for 3.5 games. And part of it maybe is the punishment, but also it just felt like a real haphazard piece of decision making because of everything that was going on in that melee, which wasn't very much, but everything that was going on, it felt like you only looked at that one thing on the fringes rather than.
Well, clearly he did. Yeah. That's what happened. So they've changed the rules because Webber's admitted they've changed the rules post Rashford. And then that was completely inconsistent. And I know I'm sounding like, and I tweeted a few things, I don't actually think there's a conspiracy necessarily, like it's been planned. I think it's just a bias that happens to come in when you get that much noise, right? And they can't but hear that. I mean, if you're telling me that referees don't participate in any of the commentary that happens around the game, they don't view it back, they don't hear it back, they don't read the papers, they don't read anything. Okay, but I don't believe that to be true. So, and I think it's cost United. And then you just look at the inconsistencies, and that's the thing that's most frustrating. I mean, Eriksen, right, so eventually Carroll got sent off, but he did 4 filthy challenges in that game. He was just looking, and one of them's taking one of our best players out for 3 months. And he'll get a 1-match ban, by the way, because it's 2 yellows. And Casemiro misses 3 1/3 games for a little tickle, and it could actually, in pure terms, if it costs United a place, it's £2.5 million. If it costs United a Champions League place, it's £50 million. And so these things really do matter. And we saw the impact of Casemiro being out against Arsenal, and he's now going to miss 2 Leeds games. And
Leeds are dreadful.
Leeds it could be worse games for sure, but still, given that Eriksen and McTominay are out at the moment, we're thin on resources in that part of the pitch.
Yeah, although they're good when he came on, actually.
He looked all right, he did, yeah.
That, to me, seems like, it is unusual that United are able to do this, but something goes wrong, and then they very quickly find what is probably the best possible solution. In that, he might not be someone that we would spend money on having permanently because he'd take up a place in the squad when you're trying to find money to spend on probably a player who's a level above him. But I'm sure he's better than McTominay. So perhaps he might be someone you might flog McTominay in the summer and get him. But what I like about him is I like the physical presence. I like the speed. Yeah. And he's also a good passer. I mean, the beard, the goatee and ponytail combo, not so much. And I know he's Austrian. No. I know he's Austrian, but my friend's grandma was Austrian and she didn't have that. So I don't see why there's any need for him to have it.
If only she'd tried harder, she could have got a bit of scruffy beard.
But yeah, I thought he did a really good job when he came on.
He did, and he's a good player. And anyone who said, there was one fan account ran a poll saying, "Be honest, have you ever heard of Marcel Sabitzer?" Come on. Anyone who watches the Champions League will have seen him for Red Bull Leipzig, and he was RB Leipzig, and he was excellent. And he's a kind of all-rounder who is very physical, does put in the tackles, does get in the right positions, uses the ball well. He's not a really progressive passer. He's not going to get it forward in the same way Eriksen does. The data backs that up, but he's a good passer. He keeps the ball and he does the right things with it, and so he's a good addition. He's not Casemiro and he's not Fred and he's not Eriksen, but he's got bits of everything.
It's not inconceivable that overall him instead of Eriksen would make us a better team. I do think yesterday's game, for example, we missed Eriksen yesterday. We didn't really we dominated almost all of the first half. But we didn't really create very much, and the goal was a penalty that they really needn't have conceded. It wasn't one of those penalties that you force with relentless attacking invention. And that was concerning. I didn't think that Ten Hag got the subs right yesterday.
I thought it took a while to do it when he had to change things.
Yeah, it was okay at the end, like bringing Maguire and Lindelof on at the end. Actually,
that's fine. Yeah,
I do love a Maguire dying seconds armband grab. one of my favourite little things about watching United these days. When he came on in midweek against Forest, he didn't take it immediately, but he snaffled it back at a corner. But yeah, it felt like the passing wasn't quite sharp enough and quick enough, and it was actually one of those games where I thought, I wonder if having Sancho in the middle of the pitch would be helpful here, because it's just that ability to conjure space out of nothing with footwork, as opposed to with passing and movement, which is more Bruno's thing. It felt like that might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fred in there is a challenge because he doesn't keep the ball, or he doesn't use the ball in the ways that Eriksen does, finding the men between the lines and finding those progressive passes, creating the chances, and that all does matter, and we're going to miss that for sure.
He did, however, leg it from quite a long way away to get involved in that ruckus, and I don't imagine.
Well, that's
Eriksen
good. He's got energy. He's got an engine on him, has Fred, especially when it comes to a bit of fighting. Yeah, I'm not sure. Was Anthony on the pitch at that stage? Yeah, he was. He looks like a man who likes to fight.
He precipitated the whole affair. But what I did think in the first half was, and I hadn't thought this for years, it's not perfect, but it felt like we had a right flank in that game, where Wan-Bissaka, the crossing still isn't good, but he was getting involved in field, taking up some decent positions, and not just kind of canoe-footing it wherever somewhere you didn't want it to be. And Anthony was also looking not as lively as you'd like him to, but not unlively.
I mean, got a lot of the ball, Anthony. Yeah, quite a lot of touches in his 70-odd minutes on the pitch, and he's trying to do stuff. It's still inconsistent, isn't it? He didn't blaze 15 shots over, which is his thing that he likes to do so much, but he was involved quite a lot. I think I looked at the numbers. I don't think he succeeded with any of his dribbles, and that is a problem. It's really weird. I hadn't seen much of him playing for Ajax, and delve into the data and see how many times he carries the ball, and you're like, wow, it's averaging 13 times a game, right? He's taking on a lot of players in the Dutch league, and he just doesn't do it. Yeah, and maybe it's better defenders, maybe it's confidence. He doesn't seem like he's short on confidence, but he's not the player I thought we'd get. In fact, he's a player who kind of slows things down mostly, and you want him to either move the ball very quickly or actually take a man on. So he's got work to do, but at least they were using him, weren't they? The ball was going to him, and it balances the attack out.
He's a good player. How good he's going to be is going to depend on, as you say, the things that we didn't really expect him. I didn't think he'd slow the game down either, as you say. And it's also finding the ability, finding the inclination to go on the outside a little bit more. He did that once or twice yesterday. And then you start to have a much better player. And it doesn't look, we can watch him play and think, I can see how you could be a really good player. It won't be surprising if he becomes one, but he does have work to do in order to become one, I think. But yeah, again, we don't create enough, and we all found ourselves in a situation again where we almost got caught. Yeah, and there've been a lot of games which in the last few weeks since the World Cup, it's not been as much like that, where we haven't been getting involved in as many tight games, and we've been winning games quite comfortably by a few goals. But again, yesterday they found themselves in that situation again.
Yeah, I mean, a note for Lisandro Martinez and Rafa Varane at the back. I mean, Martinez, who was just like a magnet to the ball, every block, tackle, header. He's some player, and he's just great to watch. He's talking about competing and getting involved physically. He'll get involved in anything and everything. And I'm glad the chatter about his height has gone away, because he's just a very good defender, and he was a big part of why United won yesterday, I thought.
Exactly. The kind of game where you can watch that and think they might not have seen that out if it wasn't for him.
Might not have done. But he was still on the pitch when the double trouble of Lindelof and Maguire came on. But I didn't panic, because I knew at least we had the security there, playing 4 central defenders.
Yeah, he's just good at pretty much everything you wanted him to be good at as a centre back, and he also just has that real nastiness that it's impossible not to celebrate every time you see it. is even somehow that appalling dyed hair and French crop he's got, it works.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it looks good with jeans or something.
It.
I mean, yeah, I'm enjoying it on someone else, so I wouldn't go for it myself. But maybe I should just shock my colleagues with Phil Neville. Isn't it Phil Neville who started their awful streaks? Maybe.
With the streaks, I mean, I think the streaks in football just go back a lot longer than Phil Neville, I guess. But yeah, he did have himself, and he also got into it when he went abroad. He got into like the shaving all the body hair abroad because that was what everyone else was doing.
Lovely. Phil Neville and shaving body hair. At least he wasn't waxing.
Like a seal, yeah.
Yeah. Top stuff. We should talk about United's second goal, which was a thing of beauty. I didn't really catch it first time round. I was like, okay, it's tap-in, but it's built up from the back. It's one-touch football. It goes from left to right to left again. And eventually it's Shaw that puts the ball in and a good finish by Rashford. But it's pure Ten Hag ball, isn't it?
They've shown
lovely build-up.
They've learned a bit of patience. That when they had that nice exchange around the box, where they could have just got frustrated because the kind of exchange around the box, the kind of thing that you would think would generally end in the person who gets put through actually being put through, but that didn't happen, and they quickly moved the ball on again, moved it on one more, and then scored. And seeing strikers score tap-ins is something that makes me very happy, much more so than seeing them score ridiculous goals, really, because you don't win big trophies really with ridiculous goals. You win them with tap-ins, and that seeing Rashford score a tap-in like that, having scored one quite recently before that, that's a change this season. And it will be that means that's why he's scoring so many more goals. He's playing better, but also he's not relying on bangers. He's scoring from in front of the goal. Did so against City, scored a header against West Ham, and those are the goals that you need your strikers to be getting. And it doesn't even matter if you're a winger, like Ronaldo, when he was playing on the right and on the left, scored loads of tap-ins because he made it his business to be in the right place. And being in the right place it's effort. It's making runs every time. So you make the same run or runs 8, 9, 10 times in a game, and you might get one goal like that. And previously, no one was asked to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I mean, it's partly confidence, Rashford, and making the runs, but he's not running into blind alleys anymore when he's running with the ball. That's a confidence thing. But he's working with a new coach and a new Benny McCarthy, who's been working with the forwards as well, and combination of all of this. And yeah, he just looks like he's going. I can't remember how many he's got this season, but it's quite a lot. And he's obviously going to score a load of goals this season for him. Maybe his best ever season goal scoring wise, as long as he stays fit, which has historically been a question mark. But yeah, it's great. Lovely goal from United and Rashford in the right position. And then another word for Garnacho came on, I thought had an impact. And he was less impactful. Straight away, yeah. He's less impactful in midweek against Forest. He didn't quite seem to work for him, but I thought, yeah, he clearly had an impact on this game.
He just wants to get things done. Like he gets the ball, he comes in field if he wants to. He's totally unlimited by the constraints that you might have coming into a team like this, because he's just so confident in how good he is and it would make a difference. This would be a good quality, even if he wasn't as good as he thought he was. Just the ability to think that you're good and you can just come in and start doing your own thing, which was really what helped cause that second goal, was him coming in field.
He put the ball in, didn't he? Not Luke Shaw, yeah. So...
No, Shaw crossed it for the finish, but it was
Garnacho who,
in the move, and he's come all the way across. He's basically sort of right centre by at that point. And he's just speeding up the attack and moving the ball quickly, making right decisions. And that's one of the things I really like about him, is he makes good decisions.
No, that's right. I think his game intelligence is really high.
So much.
Yeah. He's got some things that are inconsistent, of course, but I think the tools are all there. Speed, touch, ability to finish. Certainly at youth level, we've seen it. Not quite as much at first team level yet. Obviously, nice goal against Fulham the other day. Few weeks back before the World Cup. But yeah, I like all the tools. I think he's going to be a really good player that can keep his feet on the ground. Sounds like the rumours coming out that they've agreed a contract to 2028 which is good, really good news, because otherwise this would have dragged on. And we want to keep him at the club for a long time. I mean, I hope they haven't put a release clause in there, which is one of the other things that was being talked about. It'd be very unusual.
Have United ever done that?
Never. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why they didn't do a deal for Haaland when he went to Dortmund. So the rumours go. So.
Yeah. I think that's. I mean, I've heard that from someone I trust. I think that's true. That they wanted something for him to be able to, because he's just that rarity, Haaland. He's someone who can plot their own career. Yeah. Because he knows that he's the best.
He knows he's good. Yeah.
That there's basically no club that wouldn't sign him at any given time, particularly if he can do something to make money comfortable for them.
Well, quite, yeah. I do find it quite amusing that he's completely disrupted City's flow in attacking terms, and he's still not scoring City goals quite as much. I mean, he's got a lot of goals.
I don't think it's just that.
It's not just that.
I think there are lots of things going on with City that Guardiola maybe has lost himself in some kind of, I don't know, bald person's masturbation. That I don't know, where he's just sort of become so obsessed with something, but he doesn't quite know what the obsession is with almost.
Yeah.
And
he talked about it, about the game versus United. He said he'd been thinking about doing something really radical. You know how he has this inclination in big games to suddenly decide to put a full-back in midfield and a forward in goal or whatever it is, and playing no strikers.
European Cup final with no defensive midfielder.
Yeah, that kind of thing. He just has this kind of aneurysm and decides to go do it. And he talked about it, which is unusual for him. But yeah, it is kind of sweet that Klopp and Guardiola are having a bit of a mare all at the same time. There's even chatter, I guess we'll get to it in the backers content, but there's a lot of chatter about amongst Liverpool fans online, which I admit is not a reliable source of information.
Liverpool fans online.
Liverpool fans online, yeah, use that as a start to a sentence. But there's more talk than I've heard before about maybe the end is coming for Klopp, which is sweet. Very sweet.
Well, it's one of those, I mean, you see Klopp under pressure and you just think, if this guy had been around at the same time as Fergie...
Oh, it'd been good. It would have been good.
He would have had underpants on his head saying Wibble in no time whatsoever. He's a
brilliant coach. Look, he's a brilliant coach. I'd have loved him to have become United manager rather than Ed Woodward screwing that one up. But he does react to pressure in not a great way, and I think Fergie would have run rings around him, which would have been good to see.
And I mean, also, because with someone like him, you get to that point where you have to either sack him, which would be ridiculous behaviour, or give him the money that he needs to rejuvenate the squad, which is also a lot of money, because it feels like him and those players probably isn't working anymore.
It is. So it's not. The balance is. We should go into this in more depth for backers, but I think you're right. He hasn't got the midfield he needs to play Klopp ball anymore. Well, I mean, we don't have the midfield we need to play Ten Hag ball for a couple of months, but we'll see.
I mean, the thing about United now is if we just hung on against Palace and Arsenal, which not very big asks, we would still,
I know.
We would still have a sniff of the title.
We'd have been 3 points better off. That would have looked very, very good. We'd have been, we played a game more than Arsenal and we're 8 points behind. But Arsenal would be 2 points
worse off as well.
Yeah, Arsenal would be, you're right, yeah. We would be just the 6 behind Arsenal, which, given I'm still expecting them to wobble. They're one injury away from
they lost to Everton yesterday.
They lost to Everton yesterday. I mean, look, Arteta getting diced is perfect. It's been a very good weekend for results that have gone a very good way. Not that I'm a huge fan of Sean Dyche necessarily, but him doing that to Arsenal in his first game for Everton was quite good.
One more thing on yesterday's game, actually.
Yeah.
I think one of my favourite things about that game was the way United played in injury time, where they basically, with a really good mix of aggression and composure, kept Palace away from the United end, more or less, kept the ball not in play. And that was... They managed that time really, really well, I thought. And that's not something that's always been the case, where against Arsenal, obviously it's a different team, but against Arsenal, they weren't aggressive like that. They sat back and they invited pressure and backed themselves to see it out, and they weren't able to. Whereas I think they'd have been better off trying against Arsenal. What they did yesterday is trying to get men forward still and try and keep the ball down the other end, because and just been a bit more aggressive and a bit more composed, rather than kind of thinking that panic defending will be enough to get you through the game. Even though it almost did get them through the Arsenal game, it wasn't totally unreasonable behaviour, and it probably should have got them through. It felt like that wasn't the smartest way of doing it, and I much preferred the way they went about doing it yesterday.
Yeah, I do get very nervous when a team retreats very, very deep too early.
Mourinho's
just inviting something to happen, aren't you? It was interesting. I thought for 5 minutes against Palace after the red, they didn't handle it very well. Bruno went back into central defence out of central midfield. I think these habits of Anthony substitution should happen straight away, right? You don't need to go look at the pattern to make that decision. And it took Ten Hag a little while and it didn't settle down quickly enough. But after that, it was very good. After that first 5 minutes of panic, I think United were very, very good after that. And it's a sign of a maturing team. So apparently the players think Ten Hag's the real deal. I didn't like the story that was going around that the Glazers think Ten Hag is the real deal and they think he's the real deal so much that they're prepared to delay the sale or just take a minority investment, probably from QSI or something like that, because they think that he may be so successful he inflates the value of the club. There's a whole string of thought I have there that the Glazers only invest in the club, or they only allowed the club to invest its own money when United are failing, and now they think the cash cow may be back. We'll see how true that is. I'm still betting that the sale to American private equity is the most likely route out of this.
I mean, I agree, though. I was troubled by that. Hang on a sec, United are good again. Why would we sell United now? You hang on for one more year. And
might get a better number. I don't know that if they're really floating around this 6 to 7 billion number, they're not going to get a better number than that. We've got 12 years post IPO of zero growth in the asset price. The only reason United are trading at $21 now rather than the 12 to 13 that it has been for the last decade is because they've told the market that they're going to sell. So they've repriced in the goodwill factor, right? Or goodwill, the brand value the market has. And it's not because of some magic or Ten Hag or anything like that. So you've got a lot of history of ownership by the Glazers that tell you as a financial investor that they are not good, right? And you won't get, unless they're prepared to give up majority ownership, which they are not, unless they're selling all of it, then you're not going to get people in charge. The only way they get minority investment is either a really dumb private equity firm who don't understand what the Glazers are as management.
That just seems unlikely.
Take a small stake, which seems unlikely, or a nation state that wants to make a transition over. And there's been a lot of talk that QSI are looking to eventually, long term, back out of Paris Saint-Germain and get into the Premier League instead. And they might start with a 5 to 10% stake in a Premier League club. So clearly those talks have happened. I don't like that thought. I think a clean sale and new owners is, better the devil you know, maybe, but it's hard to have worse owners, at least from a pure management perspective than Glazers. Of course, there are worse owners, which could still happen. Anyway, so I didn't like some of that chat during the week.
No, agreed.
And United are a leaky sieve. It's all coming out. So it's and I check with some financial bods I know to see if any of it's true, but yeah, still. Anyway, he's the real deal, Ten Hag, which was the thought I started on.
Yeah, that was a nice thought.
That was the nice thought, yeah, where it led wasn't so great.
And it is kind of interesting, I've been thinking about this a little bit, that you've got Guardiola and Klopp, who, and just previously successful managers, are kind of big personalities. And now you've got Ten Hag, Arteta, who are not that, who are more kind of technocrats in a way. I mean, they obviously have a lot of internal fire, but it does there's not a lot of charisma there exactly. And if football becomes more systems based, if the ability to inspire people will not be as important, if it becomes a less blood and thunder game and a more systems based game, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, clearly Ten Hag is a systems coach. I mean, he has a very clear view of what he wants out of United, and I think the players are reacting to that and believing it.
Though he does talk about mentality all the time,
a lot, all the time.
But he said it really clearly after the Liverpool game that these are good players it's not about the ability of the players; it's about the ability of the players to perform, basically.
Yep.
Because they're good, and it is in the end about having the correct mentality. But the ability to inspire people to do mad things, I mean, as we've seen with Klopp and Liverpool, is something that is very much based on personal magnetism in that particular environment. And yeah, I don't think Ten Hag has that kind of relationship with the players, but I do think the players trust him.
Yeah,
they want to do what he says, and they can see that he's right.
Yeah.
How quickly it all turned around. 2 games, and then all totally changed after that.
That's right. He's pretty decisive, and he clearly knows what he wants, and he's not burdened by reputation, as we've seen with Harry Maguire, despite the constant media chatter about Harry Maguire not being in the team. And he's just been like very clear-eyed about what he wants. He's not a big personality, but I think he's warmed up. He's warmed up. He's not giving those very perfunctory answers in the press conferences that he was at the beginning.
Well, it's interesting to hear him speak. He's got quite a dry sense of humour, and he doesn't talk bullshit, which I like a lot. Yeah, he doesn't have that enveloping, consuming magnetism or swag or whatever.
Yeah, that thing with Klopp, though, kind of turns from him having a bit of an aura to when he's under pressure, looking like a drunk on a park bench and sounding like it sometimes as well, which is nice that he kind of breaks down like that. It's perhaps the one flaw in his coaching.
Qualities.
Yeah.
His propensity to internally combust.
It's great. Love it. Love it. So I did want to touch on the transfer window because it closed and United's, I don't know, what do we give them? A B+ for the transfer window. So it's not an A because we didn't spend any money.
Because you can't I thought they given that there was no money to spend, they did a pretty all right job of finding the best freebies that they could.
Yeah, I mean, Weghorst is obviously he's pretty average, but he knits the forward play together okay. He does okay. He's not going to score a lot of goals.
I mean, Martial's injured again anyway.
Just unbelievable. Like the guy could injure himself sleeping. It's just it's so frustrating because you know that he's the kind of forward Ten Hag really wants. A number 9 who's like multifunctional, can run into channels, got pace, can finish well. If he could just stay fit and be motivated, which are the 2 things that he rarely is, it would be magnificent. But we are like chasing rainbows. I think that is what people call magical thinking, isn't it? To think that Martial could be all of those things at the same time. So Weghorst, okay. Sabitzer, I think my instinct is it'll be a very good purchase, and it was an emergency panic, if you want to call it that. But actually, they came very quickly. And which tells you that Murtaugh is doing a job, and they're the new head of recruitment and analytics, 2 new people in place and have been in place for a while now. And they gave him a list of 10, after Eriksson gave him Ten Hag a list of 10 players who they identified, who they thought may be available, and they went down the list. And they got someone, and they've spent quite a bit of money on this loan, actually, surprisingly large. I think it's more than 5 million, but for 6 months. So not
the
bargain,
thing is it makes sense because they're thinking United should get top 4 here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
If you suddenly are an injury away from McFred, that's not quite the same. But all of a sudden, you sign someone who is good and likely to be fit, and not someone who gets injured. Then that you can see why they signed. You can see.
And I thought there's a load of nonsense punditry around it, which was basically people who don't watch any Bundesliga and don't know what they're talking about. I mean, he's been in and out the Bayern side because they've got Goretzka and Kimmich. They've got
Musiala
fabulous.
And that's the thing. Is you wouldn't necessarily want him as the midfielder that we need to sign, who is faster and stronger than Eriksson. You'd want the next player, to be a level above him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you want the level of player like Kimmich. You want something of that sort. Yeah. But in the meantime, you can see, we've seen him play.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He was great at Leipzig.
And he wants it physically and mentally. He wants it. And same with Weghorst, that, you're coming on loan, but in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking, I wouldn't mind this, in fact, not being a loan, actually.
Yeah.
He knows that it's not happening for him at Bayern. The best he's ever going to be at Bayern is a squad player. He's 28. Whereas at United, it's a clean slate. So if you come in and you do something and you'd play really well then, because also Bayern have got Gravenberch as well, who
yes,
they wouldn't
he's not
let
been
come
playing,
to us.
but
They wouldn't let him go on
yeah.
loan anywhere, which means that they want him around for some reason or other. So yeah, whereas if he comes and does really well at United, then even if he could earn himself a contract, he wouldn't necessarily be the guy that starts all the big games if you sign someone else, but he'd get enough games to be happy, and more games than he's getting at Bayern at the moment.
Yeah. So anyway,
Weghorst
decent work from United in the transfer window, given the restrictions placed on the club by, well, cash mostly.
Yeah,
Potentially,
you can only have freebies.
Yeah, there's no cash in the kitty, and the Glazers weren't taking any more equity out or converting equity into cash because they've never done that, and obviously couldn't borrow anymore or didn't want to borrow anymore given the sale. And like there was a lot to talk about United being near the top of the financial fair play window. It's called something different: profit and sustainability. I've done my back of the envelope calculations. Don't have them there quite yet. It will be probably in 2 years' time because of the way that it's, well, especially under UEFA regs, it's going to be 70% of squad cost in 3 years' time. Next year it'll be 90%, 80%, 70%. So if we continue with the same level of spending and the same level of lack of sales, it might be a problem, but not yet. Plus, I think they'll sell a few this summer. And if they can get decent money for a youngster somewhere, that would be good.
I mean, yeah, you could look at like Henderson, Maguire, McTominay.
There's money to be had there, yeah.
Like, there's not 150 million there, but there might be 80 million quid there.
Yeah, and now the youth team is functioning. Perhaps they'll make some sales. I mean, Chelsea and City have been very, very good at selling younger players for a lot of money.
Presumably there isn't room in the squad for Ahmad and Police Street.
Yeah,
they both look like good players, but presumably you have to sell one of them in the summer.
Because that's right.
One of them,
and the way the amortization works, which is the loophole Chelsea have been exploiting partially, is that you book the cost over the lifetime of the contract, which is why Chelsea are giving out 8.5-year contracts. But when you sell a player, you get it all on the book straight away, which means they only need to sell one £40 million player a year in order to spend hundreds of millions. It's partially closed by UEFA next year, who've restricted it to 5 years, but they're like. Anyway, it's a whole very boring chat, but yeah.
I mean, it is kind of like that's Todd Bowley's thing. I've spotted this loophole, so I'm going to do this for one transfer window or two.
There is a reason why for 100 and odd years of football transfers that it hasn't worked like that. It's because it's a hell of a risk, and presumably not all those players are going to work out, and some of them are going to be very hard to get off the books. And players will ask for improvements in contracts if they're brilliant. So. We'll see how it works out. It's a big risk.
My guess would be that they think that Mudryk and Fernandes are brilliant players.
Yeah.
That were worth whatever money they were lucky enough to end up paying to have to get them.
Yeah.
Like the rest of it's all a bit weird, but I do feel like there's some sense to that. I mean, I didn't see Enzo Fernandez in the World Cup and think this guy's definitely going to be one of the best midfield players in the world. I know that people who've seen more of him than that think that that's the case. So It seems like a fair thing to posit. But I'm just saying, based on the evidence that I saw someone who might be good, who was quite good, who might be good. I didn't think he was brilliant in the World Cup at all, or anything approximating to brilliant.
I see the raw ingredients for a great player, but of course it's much more than that. Mudryk, I mean, you watch him for 10 minutes, you watch him for 5 minutes, he's absolutely electric. You watch him for 10 and you realise he doesn't do all the right things. And a lot of the nerdier stats types are like, we don't like this player quite as much as you think you like him. So we'll see how that one plays out. It'll be interesting, but he's definitely not the finished article. All right, I mean, hate to bring this up, but sorry, go ahead.
Because the thing about it with Chelsea is that I felt like if you're someone who thinks they're going to have options, then I felt like with Fernandes, if he's someone who would surely have options in the summer, more options than Chelsea, so he could have just stayed with Benfica. I was surprised because the thing about Chelsea is they are offering London, which might be appealing, but you're offering Graham Potter, a manager who, I'm not saying that to take the piss out of Graham Potter. You've got a manager with no track record of success who's having an absolute shit of a time at the moment.
Yeah.
So either they give him loads of time and it doesn't work, that's an option, or they fire him and get in someone completely different who, you've got no idea who it might be, but also they might not be good either. You've got owners that don't know what they're doing. It just didn't seem like they were a club that someone of Enzo Fernandez's purported caliber would push that hard to join at this moment.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I presume that they had a chat with some of the elite of European football at the same time in order to create the auction and work out where he could get the best money. And it may well be that Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid have different ideas at the moment, given that they would be the teams that would also be in the auction. And Real Madrid maybe lining up pay once again in the summer. We'll have that drama to talk about. All right, I was kind of debating whether we should talk about this, but I guess we ought to talk, at least touch briefly on Mason Greenwood, which is a really unpleasant topic, isn't it? So all charges dropped, and United have launched an internal investigation, I guess, to decide whether they can fire him or not, or what they should do there. I have to say, Twitter turns into like one of the most toxic, horrible places when this kind of topic comes up, and I find myself like having a lot of trouble participating in any of those conversations. So, I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but I couldn't see those pictures and hear that audio and unhear and unsee any of it, whether he's guilty in a court or not. So I could not unsee that and unhear
Well, that's it, isn't it? The first, like, courts have to start from a place of innocent till proven guilty, and also the criminal case is like there's a high burden of proof. It's beyond reasonable doubt rather than civil cases, which are on the balance of probability. So That makes sense, obviously, for any civilized society, but that doesn't mean that we're not able to draw our own conclusions from things that we see, because our standard of proof doesn't have to be that high, because
it doesn't.
We're not a court. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is we should always start from a position of believe women.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, therefore, that I'm assuming all men are guilty or innocent until proven guilty. Innocent until proven guilty in a criminal court, but not necessarily in the court of my mind. As a man, you are more likely to be raped than to be falsely accused of rape.
Yep.
There are hardly any false accusations of rape. And when I say believe women, I mean that if your wife, your mum, your daughter, your sister came to you and told you they'd been sexually assaulted in some way, you would not say, no, you haven't. Innocent until proven guilty. You would not say any of this fucking bullshit.
Right, exactly.
And if that's the case, then you need to accord that same respect to someone else's mum, sister, wife, daughter.
Exactly. Very, very well put. And I find it, I don't get involved with that. The people who push back in that manner that you framed out there, I try not to get involved with, because you can't convince them. There's no point. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that. And unfortunately, United as a club are also pretty morally bankrupt. I mean, we brought Ronaldo back. You can't unread that affidavit. Yeah, and I think you have to actively decide not to do it, or you just don't give a shit about women. I think
Solskjaer, the Ronaldo thing, although like we can sit here and say it's complete bullshit, like what on earth are they doing? It doesn't follow him around in the way that it should.
Yeah.
So when United made that decision, it wouldn't have even, I'm absolutely certain, it wouldn't have even been something they discussed, because it's not part of Ronaldo's narrative that he's also this. Or
look, if it'd been an audio recording, right? If that was an audio recording of him reading out his affidavit, then I think it would do. And I think in the same way that, and we should respect, even though she's been named, her right to privacy, right? In the same way that Mason Greenwood's girlfriend was driven to record him and just think about what happened before that for her to go do that and make that decision, the same way that now will follow Greenwood around, because we've all heard it, and it's much more visceral than a lawyer written affidavit admitting to all your crimes. And so, yes, they are perceived differently. But United were happy to take Ronaldo without even a thought. And we know that Ole Solskjaer was a manager for a while. And I'm not saying, well, he shouldn't have ever been manager, although you can come to that conclusion because of what happened at Molde. Go off and read it. There's super deep dives out there if you don't know that story. And Ten Hag, this is lighter, but still in the same ballpark. Ten Hag, like almost immediately defending Mark Overmars and saying he'd love to work with him again after what Overmars did. Again, different things, but still,
it's the world of football, because you have this ideal. We
just don't
of
give a
football.
shit, apparently.
Yeah, I think it's you get so consumed by the idea of the football. It's like Guardiola. Guardiola has political opinions. We know that because we know what he thinks about Catalonia.
Yeah,
but he sort of feels that you can put that good football is a moral standard of its own, and therefore you can have other moral aspects are subservient to that highest level of producing beautiful aesthetic football.
Yeah,
and people become caught up in that, and as the fact that this stuff doesn't follow Ronaldo around is absolutely mind blowing. I actually wanted to write a piece, and I couldn't find anyone to let me write it, about what our duty is as writers. So when you have these sketchy characters like Ronaldo, say, or whoever it might be, how often do you refer to these things? Because I used to find that I'd be writing and I found, like, how can I say, oh, Ronaldo smashed one in for 30 yards, what a brilliant player from this fine young man, or whatever. What should our standard be as writers to refer to these appalling things that people we're feting as brilliant sportsmen do as well?
Yeah.
So should it be in the body of a piece, or should you hyperlink every time you put Cristiano Ronaldo's name there? You hyperlink to the Spiegel issue, whatever it might be.
Yes,
to the Spiegel investigation. That because we shouldn't. I don't feel that you should be able to be this one person on the sports field, where nothing that you've done makes any difference. I used to do it. I'd be writing about Alexander Zverev the whole time when I was live blog tennis. And it's just like, okay, well, every time I write about Zverev, I'm going to embed Hermione Carriol's pieces on the Zverev domestic abuse situation. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything, but just every time Zverev's playing in a major, I'm going to put the paper's own piece up there just because it needs to be there.
Yes. Well, look, do we have a duty to give the full context all of the time, or is it implied? And I think it's definitely a challenging one, because most of the time I think media outlets would rather it be implied, because it's boring to say the same thing over and over again, and there are legal consequences for doing that repeatedly. And it works the same in sport washing. It's not like Manchester City won 3-0 today, and by the way, let's talk about the Abu Dhabi regime's decision to wash their reputation through a football club, right? That context is not given.
The more I think about that, the more I think that sports washing is not a good explanation of what this is about, actually, in that it has also drawn attention to these things. I'm definitely much better informed about what's going on in Abu Dhabi than I was before. Sure. But it more feels like a jockeying for power, and power is, in its way, the opposite of sports washing. No one's trying to wash anything. This is just like barefaced desire for power, proximity to capital, proximity to influence. And that's very different to sports washing, because
it is different, yeah, and but they're related. So during the World Cup, and I talked about this quite a lot online, and obviously on the podcast we did, and someone called me out on it online, and they went a bit far, I thought, anyway, but basically said, hey, it's not fair that you call out Qatar for its practices if you don't call out colonialism as well, which, okay, we've talked about that on this pod. And then he said, and you should talk about why the Premier League is effectively a sport washing project. And again, I think that was simplistic, but the Premier League is a soft power project. And it's also interesting, because of the laissez-faire ownership rules around the Premier League, is that it's not just a soft power project for England or Britain, but it is used like that by government around the world and embassies, but also for a whole bunch of other countries too, as we're seeing, because of the way the rules are set up. So, and we've talked about how powerful football is. Anyway, but the power of football does something for countries, whether it's soft power or reputation washing or access or the desire not to get obliterated by your neighbour, or for footballers to be this thing that's disassociated off the pitch from the thing that's on the pitch. And that's what kind of been asked to do when Ronaldo's there, or Ten Hag defends over Mars, or we have Ryan Giggs in the director's box,
So yeah, I've written
or
one
Ollie
piece
is
about,
manager.
I've written one piece about Ten Hag, and I wrote about Overmars because it had to be said. And it was just after he tried to sign Arnautovic.
Yeah.
And again, also something, no one asked you to do that. You did not have to do that. Which is funny and that's sometimes where you feel things can be telling somehow. So I'm going to guess an example that occurs to me is when Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party. I am politically aligned with Jeremy Corbyn on a lot of things, I think. I mean, I'm not aligned at all, I hope, with his intellect, because that was a very different problem with him, was just that he lacked any of the skills to do any of the things he would want to do. But the thing, so when there was a lot of consternation among Jews when Jeremy Corbyn got this job, and I was sort of inclined to wait and see. And the thing that made me say no was when he appointed Ken Livingstone to oversee justice reform.
Yeah.
Because you literally didn't have to do that. No one would have said, why isn't Ken Livingstone overseeing justice reform?
Right.
If you hadn't asked him to. And he is one of British politics' most storied anti-Semites.
Yes.
And you absolutely did not need to do that, and you did it. And that made me realise, when you do things when you don't have to, it just feels like a thing that really can be quite telling about an individual. Anyway, we digress. But back to Mason Greenwood. I think that I don't think he'll play for United again. I think that the manager will not want him to, and the players will not want him to, because I feel like it feels distasteful talking about this in these terms almost, but the impact that what happened with him had on the squad last season was, I believe, significant. I've heard that because, and that makes sense. Like, someone who you think is all right, who you work with every day, suddenly turns out to be a monster.
Yeah,
that is something that is very that's something that can be troublesome. So I think that if you would somehow move away the moral issues, just footballing issues, I don't think that Ten Hag will want that in his dressing room. I don't think that other players will want that in the dressing room. So if you're making a decision and you're someone that doesn't have a moral compass, you'll be able to look at it through the prism of football and still say, actually, I don't think this is right. But I don't see any way that United, from economically, morally, any of these reasons, could allow Mason Greenwood to play for them again. I'm absolutely certain.
I mean, it's very difficult. They have to find a way of firing him, basically. Otherwise, they're going to profit off him, and that's a different question. But pretty distasteful too.
Because again, United don't have to go by innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Don't have to at all. Beyond reasonable doubt. That's not what has to happen here. Because
every player in the Premier League,
we've all heard the recordings, we've all seen the stuff, and that, by the standard of proof that United would need to deploy, that would be enough. That is way beyond balance of probabilities.
Look, so every player in the Premier League has a template framework. So the clauses around bonuses and wages are different, but the template is the same, and it's governed by the negotiation with the PFA, and they all have the same morality clause. And United can almost certainly use that to fire him, and I think that's what they would do if they decided to go down that route. They would have done that with Ronaldo if they hadn't agreed to mutually terminate the PR version of it. So they're probably looking for a way to do that. It's very hard at this point to then unsuspend him, because you are going to be questioned and they'll be making these decisions: commercial, legal, political, reputational, and football, and they're all going to play into this. So of course, online there's a whole bunch of United fans saying, get him back in the team straight away.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be really very, very clear about this. If you want Mason Greenwood to play for Man United or any football team ever again, you're a wanker. I can't make it clearer than that.
No, I fully agree. And I fully agree. I don't want him. Brilliant player though he is, and I say that very carefully, I don't want him playing for United or playing football. We don't need that in the game. It's difficult to get there. There are a few steps that have happen that to happen, but I suspect that will in the end. But United have a few things to navigate because, of course, he has a contract and they're going to have to find a way of firing him. Unfortunately, like football will find a way of employing him again, probably. It may not be in England. And it brings me on to a thing that I wanted to talk about as well, which was Henry Winter's fucking disgraceful article in the Times. It's behind a paywall, but you can find paywall-breaking websites out there if you don't want to pay to read this crap. But as usual, Winter, I mean, he does this sometimes. He gets on this like some kind of thing he wants to talk about, and he's just incredibly pompous.
When you do this, the desire to appear to be sincere when...
God, I couldn't stand this. It's an awful piece.
And the reason you know is because you do sincerity so wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
It kind of suggests that, in fact, you're not that sincere. But yeah, the idea that he should just send him abroad then.
Yeah. It was. Look, it just made me think of like the Mr. Chumley-Warner sketch from the Fast Show, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chumley-Warner, we can't have him raping our English women. Let's send him to Johnny Foreigner to do the raping. It was horrible. It was just awful tone. And then he suggested this other thing.
England again.
I know.
This not the Three Lions. You can't disgrace the Three Lions in that manner. It's so far from what, like, there's so many, this whole thing raises so many issues about football and society, to be writing about whether or not he should be banned from ever playing for England again is just such a miscalculation, not misappraisal of the situation.
Yeah, he's got it badly wrong, and he was tone deaf, and then his reaction to it with people calling him out on it was awful too. You're just disgraceful piece. And Henry, if you want to come on the pod and defend yourself, that's great. But I wouldn't expect a warm reception. Anyway, the whole thing is awful. It's going to take a while to play out, and it would have been better all round for the legal thing to play out to its fullest, but that's not going to happen now. And it doesn't happen in more than 99% of these cases, which says something about our society and our justice system as well. Got to do one of those daytime TV things and transition into the next topic now. Leeds at the weekend. Doubleheader against Leeds. Lovely.
Leeds and doubleheader.
Awesome. Yeah.
Sounds kind of strange. Yeah, Leeds are fucking rubbish.
They are. Jesse Marsh has not made them good.
Great delight to say. Yeah, I mean, he's in trouble, March. I mean, the Leeds fans I know have given up on him.
Right. He's only just had a year in the job? Something like that. So,
I mean, the extremely measured and erudite Rob Bagchi has had enough. And if he's had enough, I would say that enough has probably been had by many people, just because he's an extremely thoughtful and measured individual. And he was just saying that they're less than the sum of their parts, and that is enough. He's had a chart, he's had his go, and he's rubbish. And they do not look a good team. But they do have some nice attackers. And they are one of those teams. It's very hard to see them getting anything out of a game with this United, because United don't give much away at the back. And how are Leeds keeping United out for 90 minutes? How are they not scoring at least twice in both of those games?
You'd think so, though no Casemiro is going to disrupt the balance of United's midfield, assuming that United aren't going to appeal and they're going to appeal
but then
by then.
If you've got a midfield of Sabitzer, Fred and Bruno, there's a lot of energy there. And I would say that'd be quite hard for Leeds to deal with, I think.
They brought in Weston McKennie over the transfer window, didn't they? They're stuffing their midfield full of Americans, which
I mean, he's a good
I don't
player.
think he's quite like a Ten Hag going after Dutch players or players
he's not
from
a bad
their
player. I
Eredivisie.
mean, the idea that a player leaves Juventus and goes to Leeds is part of football's sickness, really.
Yeah,
And increasingly, I mean, it was the case before. It's becoming more and more the case. This last transfer window has really emphasised this, that there already is a Super League, and it's the Premier League.
That's funny. That is the PR line that the Super League committee came out with and pushed it out. But I mean, it's true. I mean, all the spending, 90% of the the net spending is with the Premier League, and there's a real imbalance in financial resources. Hasn't quite translated into European success because Real Madrid can still spend. But yeah,
that's part of it, and it's also, I mean, the real reason is just Guardiola's inability to work out what to do in the Champions League. He's he's basically mastered league football, more or less.
Yeah.
But he hasn't mastered the Champions League. Because I guess the way that they play is percentages. You'll have so much of the ball in so many of the games over the course of the league season. It's impossible for you to not win almost all the time, given the quality of players that you have. But you can't. It almost takes chance out of football. It takes the chaos out of football. Guardiola football.
Yeah,
and that is obviously quite an impressive thing to do, given that football is inherently chaotic. It's not something I love that much, but it is impressive. And Champions League, you're not able to do that because you're playing high-octane games against elite-level teams, and you can't take the chaos so much out of those games. And the way that City have been beaten in the Champions League, not against Chelsea in the final, but in a lot of the other games, against Monaco, against Liverpool, against Tottenham. There was another one that I've forgotten about, but I've just thought about it, and I've forgotten about it in the time I've been talking. But their defeats in Europe have been chaotic, in chaotic games.
Yes.
Because you can't take the chaos out. And when you don't have players that respond well to chaos, which he doesn't, you have players that don't like chaos at all, then it's that stopped him mastering the Champions League. That, and just the fact that he doesn't really seem to know that much about good defences.
True.
Which is part of it. That's how you take the chaos out, is you have defenders who pass. And you can do that in the league, but then when you have defenders that
one-off
don't defend,
games, it doesn't quite work. Yeah,
in one-off games or two-legged games against teams with really good strikers, then it won't always work, and it hasn't worked.
Back to Leeds and McKennie. Yeah, he's okay, but this, as you said, this transfer window underlined that you can make more money at Leeds than you will at Juventus. Also, the Deloitte money rankings, I think, was it 10 of the top 20 or 20 of the top 30 were Premier League teams. That's going to keep increasing when you make more revenue as Nottingham Forest than most of the top teams in the top 5 leagues. There's something weird, very weird going on. But yeah, all the financial power is with the Premier League, and you can get a really shitty team like Leeds or Nottingham Forest, who've bought 30 players this year, or in the last 6 months, in fact, which is pretty weird.
As we speak, by the way, Jack Grealish has just absolutely done Christian Romero into a red card. And I mean, Romero is someone who's desperate to get sent off in every game he plays.
He's got that bad booked,
and he sort of put his leg out, and Grealish has just absolutely swallow dived over it. He's just completely hustled him there, and Romero just had to be restrained. As we
talk, it's what is there? A couple of minutes to go in that game, and Spurs are 1-0 up. So anyway, Leeds, United should beat them. Should beat them twice because they're rubbish. I do worry about that midfield because it doesn't function the same without Casemiro in there. I wonder whether Sabitzer comes straight in. I assume he does because McTominay's not fit.
Yeah, I mean, it would.
But he does use the ball well,
and it makes it easier for Ten Hag that he might have felt obliged to pick McTominay, to give McTominay first go at that, and now he doesn't have to. It's not. Yeah. It's probably not inconvenient that McTominay's injured at this point.
That's right. All right. I don't know whether we need to preview it more than that. We've done over an hour on this. It's a long chat. Some complex stuff going on this week. A couple of wins would be nice. If City lose this, we're only 3 points behind. And you look at those games against Arsenal and Palace where you threw it away late and go, those 3 points really would have made a difference. I mean, it's too early for United to be champions, but giving it a real go would be nice as part of the development. Anyway, let's hope a couple of wins this week leading up into the game against Barcelona. A busy period, really busy period for United. Thanks a lot, Dan. Everyone else, backers, I guess we'll talk about what's going on in the Premier League this week. And everyone else will see you again in the midweek.
Please.
No question about that. It's supported by you, our listeners, through patreon.com/NQAT pod, where you can get access to our weekly ad-free bonus episode talking about football around the Premier League and Europe. This is the Backers bit. We'll talk about. I guess we can talk about the Premier League game. Stan and I have been talking about this. We should probably take a United topic on each week rather than just reviewing the Premier League. But we'll do results at the moment and then think about a topic for next week. So kind of interesting this week though. Premier League, Arsenal getting diced and City. Well, as we are recording this, we'll live get the result in the City Spurs game. It doesn't half make me think that if United had just hung on against Arsenal and Palace, we'd be 3 points better off and we'd really be in a title race right now.
Yeah, we're not massively worse than either of the two teams that will win the league.
No.
On what we've seen, and then our top level is definitely good enough to compete with those teams now. I
just need to score a few more goals. I mean, there are flaws.
That is it. We don't score enough goals. I mean,
I've been convinced for a very long time that Arsenal will shit the bed because although they're brilliant with their 11, there's no depth beyond that. None at all. And they've never been under pressure.
They still might shit the bed, but they might not have to shit the bed because City, like the thing that I had assumed at the beginning of the season when Arsenal started winning was that at some point City will go and win 11 or 12 games in a row or whatever. And that will burn Arsenal off. But it might get to a point where that might not be enough because for Arsenal to get away with losing to Everton because City lose to Tottenham, I mean, that's one of those things where things are really falling into place for Arsenal when things like that happen. United used to be like that in the 80s. Every time they were in the hunt for the title, every time Liverpool lost, United would lose. I remember there was a particular weekend where I think Liverpool lost to Stoke, who went down, and then United lost to Notts County. I think 83, 84 maybe, where they could always be relied upon to do that. But the thing about this City team is they don't have that look. They don't look like they've got a 10 win in a row kind of run in them.
No, they don't. And I can't quite put my finger on it. In the way, I think it's fairly obvious what's gone wrong with Liverpool, especially in their central midfield and the changing dynamics up front. I can't quite put my finger on why it's not working for City. That was a preview of the Backers bit. Each week we do 15 to 20 minutes on either a United topic or around the Premier League and Europe. If you'd like to hear more, it is patreon.com/NQAT pod.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.